Press Control to crouch.
The Crouch Peak Podcast.
All right, guys. So here we are. I am with Liam and Dafydd, two of our senior staff members. We brought them on in August. So just bringing these guys on here, gonna pick their brains a little bit, kind of get you guys an understanding of just how easy it is to kind of get involved in the scene and get your toes wet. So thank you two for joining. It has been a crazy 5 months, and been thoroughly impressed with your guys' growth. So super appreciate your guys' work with Recipe Media, and yeah. So say hello to everyone.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hello, how's it going?
So, in no particular order, just going to kind of spot off some questions, so feel free to answer as you guys wish. As I said earlier, you guys started with us August 8th, so coming up a little bit over 5 months. Can you guys walk me through your experience with Counter-Strike before Recipe Media, whether that is esports related or not, and just kind of walk me through what got you guys involved on that side of the industry and got you to here?
You want to go first, Liam, or?
Hey, yeah, sure. I'll go first. Well, I first built my PC back in late 2016, and for Counter-Strike at least, it wasn't really the esports side that I got into first. I was more just watching like funny moments videos from like different YouTubers, like I don't know, Smitty was probably a big example of that. And I didn't actually know that there was like an esports scene behind it. But the more I kind of like played the game after I got my PC, I kind of like realized I think it was when Gambit won the major, it popped up on the screen and I was like, oh, there's like an esports scene. And I kind of started noticing like on even on the guns like stickers and stuff, and I was like, oh, I might start looking into this. And then I didn't like pay too much attention to it for the first while, but then it was actually mid 2017, I think. I am New York, I want to say. The one where FaZe beat Liquid in the final, and like FaZe just stomped the whole tournament. That was the first tournament I watched, and I was like, holy! I was like, this is like such a good esports. Like it's so exciting. Like even when like FaZe were like stomping Liquid in like one of the maps, I was like, this is still exciting to watch. And I just got more and more into it. I started watching different videos. I started watching like streams of games and started watching demos. And the first tournament I kind of watched like start to finish. Like the New York one, I kind of was like dipping in and out, watching occasional games. The first one I watched start to finish was the E League major, the Boston major, which I never actually mentioned in Rush Media during my time here, but I was actually a FaZe fan at the time. So hearing Ryan go on about it,
Yeah, it's a good thing you didn't
persistent.
mention it. You would have thrown your app in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few FaZe fans I see in our Discord chat, and I just keep a low profile. I think ever since I even like got into working in esports, I'm not like that big of a fan of like particular teams anymore. I'm just like watching the games and kind of appreciating them. Because I just inject Counter Strike into me at this point. Like I just want to watch as much as I can, and I'm not focused on like who's winning or who's losing. I just appreciate like good Counter Strike. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the best way to describe how I got into Counter Strike in general, and then into the esports scene of it.
Cool. So before we move on to Dafydd, what kind of experience do you have outside of it that kind of bridged that gap, education or otherwise?
Sorry, what you mean in like?
Your schooling and stuff. Like, did you have any kind of out of CS experiences that kind of helped you with that? Like,
Journalism.
any kind of education or work experience, anything like that?
With journalism, it was kind of it's always been something that I was interested in. Like when I was in primary school, there was a editor from a local newspaper who came in to visit our school. He was just doing a talk, and I ended up talking to him after the class, and I was saying like, do you have any advice? Like it was something that I was looking to pursue, especially with like sports journalism. So then I started writing match reports and like just in my spare time of like a football game that was on TV, or like local sports game that I was at, and I stayed in contact with the editor from that newspaper, and I sent him on a couple of pieces, and then one or two of them got published. But when I went on at the end of my time in school, in secondary school, I kind of had fallen out of love with journalism a little bit. I was like, I don't know if this is the right career path for me long term. And then it was kind of like I did law and history for my degree in college, and I really liked writing for like essays and stuff. And I never really thought of like leaving law or even like considered it. But then when I saw the applications for Rushby Media come up, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try this out. Maybe I could like spark something like new in my life that's just different. Because I like law had kind of gotten stale at the time. But like up to that point, I was like, maybe this is just like how it's gonna be. Like I just go through my degree and then find a boring job in law. And then yeah, like Rushby Media kind of like it gave me an outlet where there wasn't a lot of pressure. I didn't have to go all in on journalism, but I could also try it and like put as much in as I wanted to. And like for the first few weeks, I was putting in like an hour or two just doing like little research, stuff like this. But now as like time has progressed, I put in as much time as I possibly can without it conflicting with my like prior arrangements with like my master's degree.
Cool. Well, that's good stuff. Dafydd, same question for you.
Cool. Well, yeah, I first got into CS when I was in school. Like must have been in my teens, kind of mid-teens. I had a MacBook Air at the time, and I was running CS:GO on that, and it was just an awful experience, with terrible Wi-Fi as well. And I wanted to like play more, but I just couldn't. I didn't really have the means at the time. So a friend who I made like a year later, he kind of suggested that I should watch a pro CS:GO game. I think the first game I ever properly watched, I watched like a few, but the first game I ever really got invested into was Immortals, when they had F and X. They hadn't picked up KNG yet, and Steel was IGLing. They played Astralis, who at the time were the best team in the world and were just incredible. I can't remember what specific roster it was, but they were just playing out of their minds. And Immortals came back and won, and the commentators, the casters were just talking about how great an underdog story this game had been. And I remember going, okay, so this is my favorite team now. I had no affiliation to any of the players. I didn't kind of realize at the time how kind of a lot of people pick their favorite team based on the region they're from as well. I knew none of this. I just went in and supported this team. Along came the Krakow 2017 major. I remember I was at a house party and Big was playing. Big was playing Immortals, and I was watching bits on my phone, just watching the score. And then my friend, who also played CS:GO, was watching it with me, and then a couple other people were watching it with me on my phone. There was too many, so then we got up the host laptop, and then everybody's partying, everyone's drinking, and there's about 10, 15 people who know nothing about Counter-Strike watching Immortals play Big and cheering, and everybody's having a great time. And that's just kind of when it just gripped me. At that point, I knew I wanted to do something, but I knew I wasn't good enough to play. So I thought, oh, maybe I want to get into coaching. I knew that at the time, I just didn't have the facilities, didn't have the mind for it. And I just kind of let it rest. A few years later, I'm still watching it with interest. I took a bit of a gap out from it, but I was still interested in the local UK scene. I was watching Endpoint rise, picking up Flames and seeing how they were doing, and I decided, I want to get big into esports. I was watching a bit of League at the time, so I thought, I'll just write a couple articles and put them on this blog. I think my first one was not even esports related. It was like, how is League of Legends so successful? And then I think my second one was, can we consider esports normal yet? I just wrote them. I think looking back, they were pretty naff. They weren't anything special. And I just kind of put them on this blog. I think I got like a couple clicks when it first came out because, my mum gave it a read more than once, and that was about it. I just kind of sat there and I was like, okay, cool. This was fun, but I'm not really sure what I can do with this. I had a few ideas for some CSGO articles, but I just didn't really have the commitment to write them, because when you're writing for your own blog, and I think it is good to write for your own blog, but when you don't have the structure around you, all that kind of stuff, me personally, I just find it really hard to just write. And then I saw this position for Rushby. I'd applied for a social media job somewhere else, and I saw they were doing writer positions, volunteer. So I applied. I had a year off uni at the time because I was meant to be doing a placement year, but because of COVID, everything was a bit of a mess. So yeah, I was working at McDonald's at the time. I remember it was 3 months or 2 months, however long it was after I sent in the application. I didn't really think anything of it. I was sitting in the break room at McDonald's with my manager in a pit of despair because, I was working at McDonald's. And then I see this email come through that just says, oh, you've been approved by Rushby Media to join the staff. And then I saw this Discord link, and then I got home at, I think, 4 a.m. my time after a shift. I met Lukas and Ryan. I was talking to them, and then I was on call, and I just heard, and this was the wildest thing to me. I didn't really know that much about Valorant, but I just heard Ryan say to Lukas, oh, I just found out who Cloud9's new player is going to be. Let's write a story on it. And I was just sitting in the call, and I was just completely bewildered. And I'd literally gone from writing an article on whether esports could be considered normal that got clicks by my mum, and then being in a call with, people who I'd seen talking on Twitter for the last few years, talking about who the new Cloud9 member was going to be. It was absolutely nuts.
That's a very good story. That tail end stuff, that's the good stuff. That's people don't understand that side of it. The very positive stories, the behind the scenes kind of stuff. That's the stuff that really drives me personally. So hearing something like that gets me really excited about kind of the position I've put myself in. So thanks for that. So kind of moving forward, actually moving forward to the next question, but going backwards before you joined Rushby, when you were in that process, when you're waiting on that couple of months before you did eventually get approved for both of you, actually, did you guys have any reservations, any kind of doubts? Were there any kind of preconceived thoughts or barriers you had created for yourself that made you feeling a little doubtful about it?
I'll take this one first if you want, Liam.
Yeah, go for it.
I thought there was no chance in hell I was getting the position. Not gonna lie. I do a writing course personally for my degree. So I thought, that might give me a bit of chance. But I remember a couple of days after I sent in my application, Ryan tweeted out something about this really good application that he just received, and I went, "Oh, okay, yeah." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Never mind."
Yeah, couldn't be me.
Yeah, and I saw it, and it was like this Brazilian writer, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, oof." So at that point, I just, I was still like, "Oh, it would be really cool if I got the position." But I was like, "Okay, that's my short-lived esports career." I had some other aspirations, other stuff, but any aspirations I had were like 10 years in the future. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this in like 10 years. Nothing to do with esports, just other stuff I wanted to do in my life. But I saw nothing in the near future. So I remember I literally just sat back for 2 months. And it was nothing to do with like Rushby or anything like that. I didn't really mind at the time doing volunteer, and I'm very happy that I did apply. But I guess the only reservations were that if you'd saw my application, like it's a miracle that I got it. So if you are feeling like that, if you see a job like this recipe was volunteer or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, if I apply, like there's no way in hell I get it, so I'm just not going to apply. It's just worth sending an application because, like, you never know. Good things happen sometimes.
Good. Liam?
Yeah. I don't think I had any reservations when I did it because like when I saw the tweet about it, I was like, oh, that looks really interesting. I like read the different positions. I saw the roster reporter one, which is the one that I originally applied for. And like when I was growing up, like in soccer, like football, transfers were like one of my favorite things. And I was like, oh, this looks like an interesting position. And honestly, after I sent in the application, like I had thought about it for like the next few days, but then it kind of like went out of my mind for a bit because I was like, ah, maybe like I doubt I'm gonna get it. Like I'm sure that so many people have gone through this process, but then, like David said, like getting that email, it really like picked me up because I was like, oh, like my application must have been good. Like they must have seen something in me, and maybe that's something that I haven't seen in myself before. So yeah, it was like it was crazy getting that email. Like David actually kind of reminded me of the story. Like when I got the email, I currently live in the Netherlands, but I'm from Ireland, so I was moving that week, and then I got the email about it, and the story David was saying about Cloud9's new Valorant player. I think it was like Ryan messaged me. He was like, "Are you able to write it? Like write it up? Like um we just need to get it out quickly." And I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to be like leaving in like an hour, but yeah, I can do it." And I was like researching Valorant, like I had a good idea about the scene, and I wrote that up. And then as I was on like in the car after leaving, I was just like seeing my Twitter blow up, just people messaging me saying how like the article reads really well, and I was like, this is like, it's just surreal. So like, getting back to the original question on like reservations, I think like much in the same way as David, kind of like you don't have that much belief in yourself when you do it, but like putting in that application, if you even have like the slightest bit of hope in yourself and you see an opportunity like that, just like what's the worst that can happen? They say no, and like you move on. But like if it works out, then it works out, and it's like easily one of the best opportunities that I have at the moment. So
That's,
Yeah, great.
that's awesome. Yeah, I hope, and I've had my own reservations throughout my tenure doing this CS stuff. I'm not going to act like I'm immune to it as well. I've certainly had instances where I talked myself out of doing something. Even originally starting my journey with Recipe Media, I remember I told myself, yeah, he's not looking for a guy like me, or, it's human nature to kind of, your brain kind of trying to protect yourself in a way. But yeah, like you guys said, to anybody out there that's listening, no matter what ability or skill or experience or whatever, it certainly never hurts to do it, just to put your name out there. And think about how many people that told themselves that and then believed it and never did it, and doing it takes you so far. So absolutely.
Also, think of it this way:
Yeah,
all the people that don't apply, you don't have to worry about them as competition. So that means, boom,
that
you're
is
in the job.
actually a good, yeah, absolutely. So much of it is just doing it and being there. And, when I think about not even just you two, the rest of the group, think about where we were 5 months ago versus now. And we think about like the week that we've had, specifically this last week, just the amount of
Yeah, that
stories
was
we've been,
wild.
think about how well our processes have been going now versus 5 months ago. It's just, you don't, it's tough to envision exactly what it's going to end up as, but you just put in the work and you're confident in those processes, and you get a good product, and we've shown that through the first 5 months. So I want to go back to your guys' LAN experience, because you guys are upon a very select group of individuals, obviously coming, still in the thick of the pandemic in certain echelons of the world. You guys were upon a very small group of people that got to cover an event last year. So can you guys kind of walk me through your guys' individual experiences, not only doing it, but it's your first time, and in a lot of ways it was the first hyped events, coming off of the global lockdown. So walk me through those.
Yeah, do you want to go first, David?
Yeah, sure. We'll go chronological.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I went to the PGL major in Stockholm, which it was just crazy. I just want to preface, like, the whole experience was just nuts. Just whatever I say just won't even live up to how nuts it was just living it. I remember when I said I wanted to go to the major, and then I think Ryan approached me and was like, "Oh, do you want to cover it with Rush V Media?" Pretty soon after I joined, and I was like, "Yeah, that would be really cool." And then originally him and a couple other people were planning on going from America, and we were thinking about sharing a house, or sharing a what's it called, like Airbnb. That was the original plan. I think there was meant to be quite a few people going, but then more restrictions came in, especially on America, and unfortunately Ryan and a few other people weren't able to go. So I booked my own accommodation. Ryan was kind enough to pay for that for me, out of his own pocket, so I could go, which was amazing. It was literally gave me, like, it just meant I had money to spend there, and I didn't kind of have to kind of live skint. It was great. I booked my flights nice and cheap, and then I also bought a ticket to the major, which is a whole story within itself. I turn up the day of, or the day before the major starts. I pay, like, I think it was 40 pounds, 40 UK currency, for a train on one stop because I bought the wrong kind of ticket. And then I remember telling Ryan that, and he tweets out something like, "Our only reporter who's going to be there is currently realizing how expensive Sweden is." And then I had all these people's in the replies just being like, "Oh, where is he? Let's meet up with him. Oh, does he want to come meet us here? Oh, we'll save him," and all this kind of stuff. And just shout out to all those people, because I was sitting in my hotel room scared that I didn't know anybody. And I thought I was going to spend the whole time either alone or with Jacob, who was photographing the
Yeah, that
event
does
with
sound
me.
pretty horrific, being around Jacob for 2 days.
Yes, that's definitely what I meant. But instead, I had the horrific experience of being around Koi. No, that's not fair. No, but it was just wild. And also, I just want to mention that when I was on the plane, the guy next to me was going to the major. The guy in front of me was going to the major. The guy 2 rows across from me was going to the major. It was like half the plane was going to the major. So that it was just a very cool experience from that stage. And then that night, I met up with one of the people who replied in Twitter. They work for who do they? They work for ESL, and they were just there as a spectator. And they go, "Oh, do you want to come with us? We're going to this private NIP party." I think they were like, "Oh, not sure who's going to be there, but you can kind of turn up." Get Right was there. That all, like, these CEOs were there of the team. It was just wild, and I was just standing there completely oblivious. I met Striker, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Are you the guy who bought a ticket?" And I went, "Yeah, that's me. Because if you didn't know, your press pass counts as a ticket to events, so you don't have to buy a ticket." So I'd spent about 200 quid on tickets that I didn't need. So yeah, it was wild. And then we got there, found out that PGL weren't going to mediate the interviews, and that we had to use our pre-established contacts with players and managers to organize interviews, which I had none of.
Yeah, that part is crazy to me. When we discovered all of that at that moment, that was crazy to me. Not trying to pit TOs against one another or anything, but in my experience, when I covered Chicago in 2019, everything was scheduled, laid out, ordered. You were allowed to reach out to players and kind of do that on the side, but yeah, they had all of that kind of laid out, which coming from your perspective, or your experience, I was stunned, especially for it being your first event at a major, and
Yeah.
you're just starting, and then
Yeah,
you're
it
being
was
told
wild.
to go swim on your own. Crazy.
Yeah, I just want to say that HLTV guys, Professor and Stracker saved my life. They were like, just reach out to as many people as you can, especially just team managers. Don't bother the players. You're not going to get through. There are a few teams who are in attendance, just watching. Reach out to them. But other than that, just go through managers. So I did, and I made some great contacts. And I just got loads of interviews considering how last minute it was. And I got some incredible interviews as well. Like Nexa is a fantastic person to interview. Yakinder is just so honest, and just like one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Art as well, actually. He's like just so nice. So it's just wild. Like it went from all these people being people I watch as this fan a couple of years ago, to colleagues and interviewees and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. It's just nothing that I expected. So being there was just an amazing experience within itself. I got to meet some amazing people in the scene, just spectators as well. Everyone was just so lovely, and it just kind of made me realize how CS events are just so different to sports in so many ways. But everybody that I met was absolutely lovely. Like I didn't meet a single bad person there, which is just wild. Because I've been to football games in the UK, and it's a rarity to meet a nice person. So yeah, it was an amazing experience for me. I met so many players. I met so many like managers, CEOs, other reporters from like HLTV, and I think Dexerto was there as well as foreign publications that I'd seen but I hadn't really interacted with. So it was amazing for me experience-wise. It was amazing to write all the articles, but it's the people you meet that I think is the wildest bit about it.
Well, all right. Well, awesome. That's yeah, I think that again, going back to that human side, when you were talking about your personal story being at McDonald's and now you're talking about your personable experiences. Again, these are all very human things that I think sometimes we don't think about, that go on behind the scenes, just beyond the headlines, beyond the interviews and stuff. There's a lot of personal experiences that you gain between, again, interviewees, colleagues, and you do meet friends that that exist in your life forever. So you're right, it does go bigger than Counter-Strike sometimes, which is a fantastic thing. So Liam, how about yourself, your experience with Blast?
Yeah, so like David said, it's chronological how we're telling this. So I went to Blast after the major, which was like what was it, like a month after the major, I think,
Yeah.
or like a couple of weeks after, because originally I actually wanted to go to the major, but it conflicted with my exam period for college. So then I was like, okay, what's the next event? And I scrolled through HLTV and I messaged you and I messaged you and I messaged Ryan, I think, because I was like, oh, let's just see who responds first.
Right. It's
And
usually me.
yeah, I learned that very quick as well. Yeah,
Yeah, you're better off communicating to Ryan by a pigeon.
yeah.
Like you'll probably get the same response time. But anyway.
So yeah, then I think you ended up talking to Ryan about it, and then like a couple of days later, Ryan messaged me. He's like, "Yeah, we got you a press pass for Blast," and I was like, "Cool. I've never been to Denmark, so let's get booking these tickets and get booking the hotel." Uh, I got to the event, and I was like, I think the doors opened at 1 because the first day that I got there was it wasn't an arena day. It was like the LAN set up without any fans. But I went in and I was in the press room. That's what I have to say about Blast as well, is they are so good with the press. Like I really appreciate that. Like shout out to Joe Lovelace, the PR manager for Blast, because he was ridiculously good with us, the way he organized it, the interviews and stuff. So we were in the press room. That was like where we were told we could work. And I set up my computer and stuff. I went outside, and this was the first time I'd been at like a LAN event ever, like not even just like covering it. So I went outside, and Heroic were like kicking a football around. Navi were like right next to me, like just having a talk before their map. And Astralis walked out right as I walked out, and I was like, "This is like surreal." I'm just standing like just amongst like all these players that I've like looked up to and like never would have dreamed like a couple of months ago, like before I joined Rustby Media, that I'd have the chance to meet them. But yeah, so then I think the first interview I did was with Exist, and I was like pretty nervous when I did it. Like you can't tell from like the interview itself because it was written, but like my voice recordings were just like shaky voice and everything. But then like as the weekend went on, the more people I met, the more people I talked to, I got a lot more comfortable, and like the players are like so nice and approachable anyways, and like Exist as a coach, they were like they know what to do with the press. They're like good at like giving longer answers than like I was probably like making out with my original questions because I was kind of nervous. But yeah, like David said, there's just so many nice people at those events, and like so many like approachable people, like the guys from HLTV, Dexerto, Jackson, especially. I like hung out with those guys a lot. They were really nice. But yeah, there's just so many nice, approachable people at those events, which was what was a worry of mine before I went, because I was like, I'm not going to know anyone here. I don't have a Jacob. I don't have like people that I know previously. I was just on my own. But I got set up pretty quickly. Out of the people that I interviewed, I'd say my favorite interview that I did at the event was with Machine.
I was about to say that one's a banger.
Yeah, that one was very good.
Yeah, because like on like the first day of the arena, we walked out of the press room. So like the press room for Blast in the Royal Arena is like right next to the stage. So you literally walk like 5 yards and you're next to the stage. And I met Machine, Anders, and Semler just before going out. But I kind of like got to talk to Machine a bit more, and he was giving me like really good advice. He's just a very approachable guy. And then I said to him, I was like, "Oh, if you get time, would you be up for like sitting down for an interview?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I met him on the final day, and like he's just such like a cool guy to talk to, and like yeah, I think it was one of the better pieces of work that I did that weekend, especially because it was a long form. It was like a sit down interview rather than like the players sometimes, like even after a game that they lose, like uh, they're not exactly like in the mood to talk, which like can you blame them?
Yeah.
But yeah, like across that whole event, there was just so many cool people to hang out with and talk to, and yeah, it's definitely an experience that I want to do again this year, which I'm gonna try and like see what's around this year, what we can get a hold of, especially with like COVID kind of going up in Europe. I hope that there's still like an opportunity to do even like those studio LAN events, which is going to be like more restricted with just press. So we'd have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah,
Liam and David dream team at the
Yeah,
next.
yeah.
Next LAN.
absolutely.
I mean, ideally, might as well, right? And that's the even if with everything obviously out of our control, you hope that at the bare minimum we can get some staff members to all, and this is not just RBM, just across all Counter-Strike. You want the media there to be able to bridge that communication line. It's always good stuff. So yeah, honestly, two different experiences, honestly, but also very similar in nature as well. Just kind of what I love about what you guys said, and this kind of bridges into the next question I was going to ask you. What was the most important thing you've learned from last year's experiences? And what I learned from you guys talking, so I'm going to take this from you guys. You guys can't say this, but not everybody is the rhetoric on Twitter does not mirror the rhetoric in real life for those people that have not been behind the scenes. We don't actually hate each other as much as people on Twitter maybe want you guys to believe, but we do get along and we actually enjoy what we do in some, at least I do. And apparently these guys do as well. So asking, that question, besides what I just said, what was the most important thing or the most insightful thing you learned from last year, I suppose, the last 5 months?
Yeah, do you want to go for it?
No, I want to thank you.
Most important thing that I learned. That's a tough one. I think a big thing that I kind of like not learned, but I kind of like appreciated more was like when I came on in the roster reporting role, was that like the importance of keeping communications like very confidential, like as in like the importance of building like a trustworthy source network where you're the one that like knows that information, and like no matter how big the rumor is that you hear or how like confidential and secretive it is, like the responsibility is on you to keep that information and not go like spilling it everywhere. Because I think like especially since the rise of like those kind of like anonymous leak Twitter pages that are just like firing out anything, like 9 out of 10 stories don't stick, but then the one that does stick is the one that they don't delete from their Twitter. So
Yeah.
like yeah, I think that's like a big thing that I kind of learn to appreciate more, is like the importance of like respecting your source network, building like a strong one that isn't going to fail you, and like being able to like keep that on the low down, and that's just like for you to work on.
Cool.
Yeah, I think mine's kind of linked in a sense of like all these esports players, all these esports journalists, even some names in the scene that I see people bash on Twitter that I've definitely in the past had my own personal thoughts about. People I'm not going to name, but they are people. Everybody is a person. They're just a dude. They're just a person, just doing a job, living their life, having fun sometimes, getting stressed other times. A lot of the time, people are tired, and some of the stuff they say on Twitter might not be kind of like who they are. But leading on from that, because I'm not just stealing your point. But when I was at LANs, or when I did interviews beforehand online, I did one with Adam 9130, for example, the Into the Breach player. He was just I was hyping it off in my head, like, oh my god, I gotta be professional, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, he's just a guy. Like he's a really nice guy. And like, being professional is very important. But like he was just talking to me. He was just speaking his mind. If you go read that article, he just calls out a couple of players at the end. I don't, what's the swearing on this podcast?
Say whatever.
Well, the quote at the end is Cadian is a cunt. Literally. He says that in the article, and it's there if you want to go read it. So even just like, and when I was at the I just realized they're all just people. And when I see people get like angry at them on Twitter for losing, or when I see people in the scene get angry at journalists for small mistakes or things that aren't even mistakes, I just think, like, okay, that's cool. Think that I probably would have got annoyed at that at some point, but at the end of the day, these guys are just guys, and it doesn't really matter.
We're just a bunch of people who really like a game.
Yeah,
And we've all decided to strap our, ropes to this ship, and we're just hoping it takes us to the promised land. And I think a lot of times we, as like a community, of all levels, whether it's the most notable staff members of any, reputable site, all the way down to the random name, 6 numbers, angry better. We are all in some capacity. We are all on the same ship, and we all want the same thing, even though we might want it in different avenues. Like Maybe the gambler and myself aren't necessarily directly correlated, but we still both want Counter-Strike to succeed. And I think if we spend a little bit of less time tearing each other down, we would get a little further. So that is some good stuff there. As far as 2022 is concerned, because we've been doing a lot of reflecting, we are now in theoretically, because life changes pretty aggressively. But as of right now, we are currently in the first full calendar year, as far as you two are concerned with Rush B Media. So let's assuming January to December, life is crazy, but let's just go everything stays the same. What do you want out of your first full 365 days with Rush B Media in 2022? What do you want to get out of this year?
Begins with M, rhymes with honey. No,
dollar bills, y'all.
I'll take this one first if you want, Liam.
Yeah, go for it.
I think honestly, I don't know how much people know about the structure of Rushby, but currently we've kind of split into two teams that has two editors on each side, and it has senior writers on each side as well. On my side, I have a really good team of writers and two just really committed editors, and we're all volunteers. But this week alone, I don't even know how many it is, but I'm pretty sure it's like 5 to 7 articles that we released, like one every day. We were getting announcements out about the Apex rosters, not leaks, like in time of their announcement, before websites like HLTV were. And for me, for the next however many days, obviously I want to improve. I want my work to get better. I want to do bigger interviews and stuff like that. But my two main things is I want to see everybody on my team just thrive, and everybody in Rushby as a whole, of course. But I want to do whatever I can to make sure the people on my team either get jobs off of this, or they are just like improving constantly and are achieving what they want to get out of this. And secondly, if you know anything about me, I love tier 2 to death, especially anything UKCS related, but just tier 2 as a whole. So if I can release more articles about tier 2, leaks, rumors, anything to do with tier 2, and especially UKCS, then I'll be a happy chappy.
Fantastic. Liam?
Yeah, this year for me with Rushby Media, I think for me personally, at least, I want to kind of like flesh out my portfolio and like just like do really good work this year. Like I have a few ideas on like articles that I want to write and like things I want to do with Rushby Media, and like I hope that throughout 2022 I can see them kind of like come to fruition and kind of like just keep building on like this start that I've had, because like obviously I mentioned earlier like journalism wasn't exactly like the thing I thought I was going to be doing at like the start of last year, even, for example. Like I didn't think I'd be in journalism or like even writing in general. So I think I've a good enough start on it, and I'd like to see myself build on it this year under Rushby Media, because like it's a good platform to like really like get your name out there and get started with. And for Rushby Media as a whole, I think through like the work that like me, David, yourself, and like all the other like talented writers that we do have, I'd like to see us become kind of like more of a reputable name in the scene, because like we've grown so much already since like we started back only like 5 months ago. But I want to see it kind of just keep growing and growing and becoming more reputable and getting up there with like even like aiming big, like Dexerto, HLTV, like where you can like go and like on HLTV specifically, like you see our reports being cited. Like we're not like a no name, but I just want to see us just keep like pushing on and like getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's the kind of drive that we love to see from the individuals we bring in. Again, it is a volunteer job. There's no disputing that. We do unpaid work, including myself. But that is always the goal. If it's not to give you guys an ability to find paid opportunity in CS, the Homestead goal is to, of course, grow this thing to become exactly that. And that's something that I always appreciate from talent when not only are you guys thinking of your own individual careers, which you should always, but also on the side having some space there thinking about the greater decency of the group, which says a lot about you guys, honestly. So
Yeah,
final question to those who are listening who were in your position 6, 7, 8 months ago, the listeners out there thinking about, I like Counter-Strike, but I'm not a journalist. I'm not a good writer. Or in general, just whatever other reservations or doubts your brain can create to prevent you. What would you say to those individuals? What kind of motivating factors could you offer to them to kind of convince them otherwise?
Um, I'd say that for me at least, it's hard to put into kind of words. Writing for me was always like a passion that I had, and I feel like I kind of like I like pushed that passion down for a while because I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll make a living off it or whatever. But if you have that passion, like writing is free, and whatever spare time you could get, just try and write as much as you can. Like, and in terms of improvement, like I find like my writing has been improving a lot more the more articles I've been reading from like the likes of Rush B or the likes of HLTV or Jackson Deserto. Like you'll find your own way with like the way that you write. Like 'cause everyone's writing is different, but you can pick up like pieces from like other people's works and like you can like form your own style like while also like learning to improve off it. And in terms of like if you're just worried to take that leap, like I love the shitty quote from Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Oh yeah.
That's like my favorite quote. I quote it all the time. Like my friends would know. It's like you're not gonna know what you missed unless you go for it. And like that's what like myself, Davis, like the other writers and editors that applied for Rushby Media did. Like we took that shot, and I find that it's like paying off a lot more now because I've found a good spot to progress on a passion that I thought that I'd lost. So
That's exciting, honestly. What about you, Dafydd?
yeah, that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, that was honestly it was very inspiring.
Yeah. What Liam's saying, by the way, is that he copies my writing style. That's
yeah,
what he was-
absolutely.
Behind
Yeah,
the
yeah.
scenes, yes. Can confirm.
Yeah,
I copy paste your
Sources
article.
confirm.
yeah, exactly. Well, the question is, that people might be scared to apply, right? But they have a passion for CS, let's say, but they're not a journalist and they don't think they'd be good at it. My first question would be, how do you know? How do you know that you wouldn't be a good journalist? Or a good writer? Like, you don't even have to use the term journalist, to be honest. Liam did roster reporting when he started, and he was good at it. He did some great articles. He also had some that didn't get published because someone else published them first. Like it is a style that he started with, and he had his wins and his losses. And then he wrote some other pieces that weren't roster reporting, which were also fantastic. So journalism, or this CS journalism that we're doing, is such a broad spectrum. It's not, I like analytics and I'm going to write an article that's all analytics, but it can be. It's not, I like storylines, so I'm going to write an article all about storylines, but it can be, because you can write kind of whatever style you want. And there are editors, and you're going to sign to an editor, and they're going to tear you apart. And maybe for a second, you're going to die a bit inside, but your writing style is going to improve. over time. And the only way really to improve is to put yourself out there and try. My first article, I think, was a Sprout piece, and I'd reached out, which I didn't know you could do. I reached out to their manager, just said, "Hey, I'm with Rushby Media. You know, like, would you mind if I wrote a story in conjunction with who you're signing?" They said yes. I remember submitting it to Rory, one of our editors, at like a ridiculous time in the morning for me because I was still working at McDonald's at the time. And it came back to me pretty much all in red. Everything was crossed out. And I went back and I read other articles in Rush B of a similar format, and things just started clocking in my head, and this writing style just started to grow on me. And even now, I wrote an article the other day on Into the Breach. I read some of Liam's reports to see how he writes. I read some of Nell as well, because I think he does good work. You can learn and adapt. And if you are worried that you don't think you'd be good, this is the perfect opportunity to figure it out. Because, and I'm not just saying Rushby Media, there are other places out there that probably do something similar. And it's just taking that chance, writing up your own blog, doing something like that. That's the way to find out. And it's not a full-time job. If you do it and you go, oh, this isn't for me, there we go. Simple as that. Maybe you want to try something else CS related. Maybe one day you're going to be the head coach of Astralis. Who knows? It's all just about trying.
That would be pretty cool if we brought someone in and they ended up being the next coach of Astralis. I think that would be a pretty high point for RBM. So, all right, guys, that was honestly fantastic. Tons of insight from you guys, especially considering how new you guys are. So me personally, as somebody, I've been doing this for, I'm going from a couple to a few years now. And honestly, that was fantastic. So thank you guys so much for not only your work behind the scenes, but of course, this interview. So if you're still here enjoying this fantastic podcast, feel free to follow us on Twitter, Crouch_Peak, PEEK. I'm going to spell that out a few more times until we can confidently say that we have patched out the PEAK versus PEEK conversation, because apparently that still happens in 2022. So for those who want to follow my personal account, you can follow me, Lukas at RBM. Liam and Dafydd, go ahead and tell the listeners where they can find you guys on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm at Liam Slevo, SLEVO, because I know some people struggle to spell it. It's the word sleeve has 2 E's. The word Slev has 1 E. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm at Dafydd00. That's DAFYDD. If you work for a big esports journalism company, me and Liam are for sale. So
yes, they are.
Highest bidder.
Highest bidder.
Yeah. You don't have to take me and Liam. You can just take me.
Everything must
Wow.
go. Everything. But yes, absolutely. Any and always, anybody who's ever looking for supreme talent and you're looking to offer a salary, look no further than Rushby Media. We pride ourselves on finding the best talent and giving them the platforms to find those opportunities, just in case sometimes we can't. Because again, we are volunteer, but nevertheless, we always strive to be a serious contender in CSGO journalism. And I think we do a great job. So we couldn't do it, of course, without the likes of Liam and Dafydd and everybody else as a part of the Rushby Media staff. So again, thank you guys for your tireless work over the last 5 months. Thank you for this interview. I'm personally super excited for what we can do this year. I'm excited to watch you guys grow in this scene as long as you guys want to continue in here. And yeah, it's going to be a great year with us. So stay tuned, guys. And thanks so much for listening. And that's it for me, guys. So see you later. Time to say goodbye.
Bye, Mom. Bye, Mom.
Press Control to crouch.
The Crouch Peak Podcast.